Hello, hello. A different sort of video, sort of guide. How to approach the sort of game plan when you've fallen behind. I mean, in that sense, you haven't hit ramp, you haven't hit any of the key components you wanted to hit. Maybe you missed your two drop as well. You haven't set up a five cost. You haven't been able to sing Whole New World. All those things. And I'll mainly use Blue Steel because that's like the deck I play. But this seems to happen with most decks, if not every deck. If Red Blue misses its ramp, it can get into all sorts of situations where it's behind, and you can just lose from the fact that you're behind and you're not progressing your game plan. Steel Songs as well can do that. If they miss their setting up their singers so they can sing their whole new worlds and sing their songs and progress their win con, they can fall behind. And Green Steel as well, if it misses its Bucky, I'm sure there's loads of guides on the online right now telling you how to play if you've missed Bucky or missed setting up your discard package with Merfolk Flynn and in what I'm assuming will be the set 5 lists. Yeah, I think the only deck just worth mentioning is red purple. Is that deck can fall behind. Of course, you can miss your Flynn, you can miss your Sisu, but I find one of the best components of that deck is you just aim to play something quite powerful and quite strong each turn with the red cards or the purple cards for draw. So you're either going to play something that's powerful on board, or you're going to play something that draws you cards. So overall, red purple. I mean, that is one of the reasons why it is the top deck, or will be is the top deck, or is the most commonly played deck. Just overall consistency of that deck is just so good. It doesn't particularly have too many amazingly bad matchups. I guess you could argue green still is its worst, but all round it does what it needs to do. It can brick. You can get some strange games where you get a full hand of uninkables, but it's not trying to do things like ramp, set up whole new world, sing whole new world. It's just trying to go turn 2, I want to play a Flynn. Turn 3, I want to play a 3 drop. Turn 4, I want to play a 4 drop. You know what I mean? It just does that continuously. So overall, it has levels of how powerful a turn can be, but it's hard for it to sort of jank up the way that Blue Steel can with missing Whole New World or missing Ramp. But yeah, I'm sure there was lots of lists on how to play that from behind as well. But as I say, that deck is just so consistent in what it does. It just seems to every turn play something that's strong, if not play the next best thing. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. But with Blue Steel, you have loads of different moments into different matchups where you could miss a key part of your win con. I'm gonna start from the start. I mean, turn 1, if you miss your Popsicle or your Sphere, sucks for you, but that's not the end of the world. We all know that that card is just a cycle card. It's nice to set up so your hero now has something to break. But if you miss that, that's not going to be the end of the world. If you miss your two drop, of course there is lots of things. I'll talk about the mirror first. If you miss it in the mirror, it can be painful unless they miss theirs, and then you're going to have to work out how you want to deal with that SME. Maybe you've got a baboom, you wait for the quest, then you take it with the baboom. That's also in very rare situations, but yeah, you can miss the SME and you can miss the two drop versus RP. And how I like to navigate those sort of things is yeah, just the minute you can get removal on whatever they have that's threatening a board, whether that be a Flynn or another SME from them, try and do that removal. I find into other matchups it's not particularly that bad if we miss the two drop. Of course, it's very nice that we can get a SME, we can get a 3/3 that quest for 2 set up on the board. But yeah, if not, I'm hunting for removal, and you versus the Flynn, you're going to take some painful rounds until you can get a Tinkerbell set up, because at that point Cogsworth isn't going to save you, because the likelihood is they'll have a Sisu, or they'll play a Goat out, or they'll get something that has 4 attacks, so we'll have to hunt for the Tinkerbell if we miss the 2 drop there. That can be quite painful. But yeah, I think it's everything else. If you miss the 2 drop, it's not the end of the world. But if I miss it in RP or the mirror, I usually am hunting for a removal for their 2 drop. Because if I play one later on, I can start trading, but I need to play it on curve. So we'll try to find something else to deal with it, something bigger, something better. Going on to turn 3 though, if you miss the ramp, which is just painful for everyone, my opinion is, if you miss your ramp, you've got to look at what cards you have in your hand, what options you have. If you've just got a handful of uninkables, like 2 grab your swords and a Zeus, that's happened to me too many times to count. Maybe you just sadly that's going to be your game loss. But I think turn the deck into a sort of Blue Steel can still work as quite a good mid-range deck. So we're going to go into consistency. So we're probably going to drop something for Hiram, and we're going to start drawing cards. We're going to get a lot of resources in our hand. We're going to set up for just a good fight. We'll be one behind, and then we can work on that ramp later on. Maybe at turn six we can double Mickey. Hopefully by turn six we'd have found ramp. Or we can quill Mickey, so we can start ramping up again. We just have to achieve that ramp later on. That does mean they'll be closer to removal things like be prepared and stuff like that. But overall, we can find that ramp later on. But if ramp's not happening on three, I think it's look at what is sort of the best thing in your wheelhouse of consistency. Sort of like usually as a harem is nice. I've done set up a Smee and a Porp, or Smee and another hook, and say like, all right, we're gonna have to fight for a bit till I can find my ramp. But there's also the backup plan, I've referred to it before from people, is play Bell out and just take the ramp from Bell. Usually we'll force a brawl from them on their side, which just it's not great, but you've at least hit your ramp. So yeah, Bell, or I'd look for consistency if you don't have Bell in your hand for the ramp. But it's not the end of the world if you miss ramp. Like I say, you do just morph into a strong mid-range deck because your cards are still around that cost area. Might need to Zeus and control the board until you can hit the ramp as well. So it's not really the end of the world if you miss that turn three ramp. But the other sort of key component is if you miss Whole New World. Now I'd say to anyone when you do your mulligan, look, if you think you're going to do a Whole New World, do a Whole New World. If you've got the nuts hand and you're versus a certain deck that you can do anything that's not green, basically. You can possibly keep one Whole New World as long as your ink path is looking fine. But your other option is always going to be Hiram. So sometimes now it's like I'm even going to be saying, right, I know it's against RP, but I'm going to go for a Hiram draw instead of a Whole New World draw this game, just because I need to hit one of those draw patterns. Hitting neither of them is really bad, so hitting one of them is good. I think the Quill into Whole New World, of course, is like the best way to play versus certain decks, mainly RP, RB, and the Mirror. But Hiram's still good. Hiram's still gonna and it's still gonna force them to do a free cost removal, and that will jank up their turn as well. So when playing behind as well, in general, I'd like to mention you can't, you don't have the luxury of trying to play around the cards they have in their hand. This is all opinion based as well. So if they're gonna brawl, be prep, if they're gonna Medusa, if they're gonna Tremaine, if they're gonna Zeus, if they're gonna let the Storm Rage on, if they're gonna do any removal actions, you don't have the luxury to sort of say like I can't play this card because they'll do that to take it out. You just have to go for it and just say if they have it, they have it. I've lost, because your other result is you're just going to lose from playing from behind and just playing from behind and not playing anything at all. So I'll have games where it will be I'm very behind against red blue. I've got Bell or like I've even had games where I've had two bells and it's like I'll just throw these on board, and if you have the answer, you have the answer. If you don't, I win the game because that'll be about 10 law. And that's sort of that sort of gets you the win. So I think when you're behind, you can't have the luxury of playing safe anymore. You need to sort of play just aggressive, just throw things out, and if they have the answer, they have the answer. Sometimes they won't, and you'll be very surprised by that. And the amount of games I've won just by throwing, here's a bell, can you deal with it? No, cool, okay, I'll get 10 law then from a bell and a dime or whatever. Um, so yeah, I think when you play from behind, you have to play with a level of confidence that you probably won't have if you have the luxury of playing on curve and playing your actual play patterns. So yeah, that's what I'm saying is if you miss these key components like a two drop, just try and look for removal and then remove whatever they've got. And this is all saying if they miss theirs, just take that as an even trade. So if you're in the mirror and you don't play a two drop and then they don't play a two drop, just take that as it is, and then look for your ramp, get your Cogsworth set up. Same into RP. If you miss a two drop and they don't Flynn, you can just walk away from that, and that's pretty good. But overall, yeah, when I'm playing from behind, I'll leave this on one last note as well. I will sometimes go into a bit of a solitaire moment and be like, right, so I'm really far behind, they're really far ahead. I've got steel removal, so I can only remove so much, and they're already into big characters and locations, whatever. So I'm just going to completely solitaire it in and go, I'm just going to work on how I can win this and not care what they're doing. And like I say, you can sometimes win by saying, here's Bell, here's Dime, I'm going to tap her, have you got an answer for her? No, cool, I win. Because of course, yeah, we're playing around all those things. Usually, we won't just play a Bell on the board because we know they'll have answers for it. They'll have Medusas or Zeus or whatever the card might be. Um, But yeah, when you're behind, you just can't do that. So I think my biggest tip is just you don't get the luxury of playing safely anymore. You don't get to safely play inside your curve. You have to just go for it and try and find the win. And if that means solitaring in and stop using removal actions, do that. If you're behind very early on, like I say, when it's like 2 drop, 3 drop range, use your removal to try and claw back until you can jump back into the game and try and just like negate the negatives of not hitting that curve. But yeah, later on when you're really behind, just go for it. Just throw things out there. As many times I beat RB because they will just get ahead from the fact that they can ramp better than us. You know, they've got one jump, Holy, how far ago, and a quill, and they're just ramping like 3 times a turn. Whilst I'm only ramping 2 or whatever, and I'm refreshing hands with Holy World. So what I'll do is I'll just throw dime targets out, try to get some taps down, flood the board, force removal, and just say, hey, if you got the answers, you win the game. But otherwise, I'll win the game, and that's just how it's got to go because you're behind. But yeah, I thought that might be some interesting points there.